huge. I mean, it's like a man. It's big.
Kane's son.
You still don't understand what you're dealing with, do you? Perfect organism.
Just tell me one thing, Burke. You're going out there to destroy them, right? Not to study, not to bring back, but to wipe them out.
That's the plan. You have my word on it.
All right, I'm in.
Let's rock!
Don't look back, dude! Run as fast as you can!
Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair.
Welcome to Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast. I am your host, Jamie Prater. I'm joined by my co-hosts,
Patrick Green
and Christian Motzka.
Today we are here to bring to you an exclusive interview with Alien Romulus director Fede Alvarez. Before we get into that interview, I want to take the time to appreciate and say thanks to two people. The first person is Willie Goldman. Many of you may not know who he is. Willie is a fan of the Alien series. He used to work for Fox back in the day, back when Fox was Fox before they were bought by Disney. But I want to say about Willie is he's really positioned us as a show to be successful. He set us up with the right people. He's given us names. He's positioned us with insiders in the industry that have really just made us a better show. So thank you, Willie. Thank you so much for what you've done. And we are who we are because of you. The next person I want to thank is contributing host Adam Ezekiel. Many of you know who Adam is because of Nostromo Crew. He makes amazing work. Adam Ezekiel and I met Fede at Monsterpalooza a few weeks back. And because of that meeting, Adam set up this interview with Fede at San Diego Comic-Con. So thank you, Adam, so much for all you've done.
And also an extra special thank you to our patrons all over the world who allowed us to do all of this. Without you, this would definitely not have happened. You got us to San Diego, and you were with us in that room with Fede and throughout the rest of the weekend, sitting next to us at the panel, etc. We just felt you in our hearts, and it's because you are the ones that help us to do this. So thank you so much to each and every one of you. You really make us who we are.
Finally, we wanted to thank Fede's team at 20th Century, who helped guide us and support us through this whole process. We really appreciate it. So without further ado, here is our interview with Fede Alvarez, the director of Alien Romulus.
Thank you so much for talking to us today. Just to get right into this, my first question is, how do you, in terms of dialogue, if you watch the original Alien film, as we all have, those characters were so real. But part of what made them real is the dialogue and the way they got along. How do you write dialogue that makes your characters or characters seem believable?
Well, it depends on the scene. For some scenes, what you do is you don't write it. You just let them improvise. You just give them some sort of guideline of what they're going to say, and they go for it. I mean, I'm pretty sure that opening scene on Alien, when they're waking up a thing, that's not scripted. That's just them goofing around and saying shit and like, has anybody ever tell you look like shit? Like it just doesn't. Those lines are never scripted. Rarely, they're just actors cross shooting, and it was a thing of the time that we really tried to do here as well. There was a lot of, Robert Altman was the one that brought at that time that sort of idea of unscripted people cross shooting in a scene and talking on top of each other, make it very naturalistic. That was the thing of the times, and Alien does it better than any of them, I think. But so we really tried, and these guys were great at that. When we let them go and just talk to each other and like make it natural, and you make sure you don't script it. And then for the rest of it, you just make sure you try to write dialogue that is not shitty. That's all you can try to do. But I was actually one of the things that really told me, which I was so proud of it, when he watched the movie the first time, he came in and said like, dialogue is great. Did you write it? I was like, yeah, I'm the writer. So I was really happy that he said that. Yeah.
It feels like the situation the characters find themselves in at the start of the film will resonate with audiences who are of similar age to the actors. Is this resonance an integral part of the story?
Well, I think it should resonate with anybody. I mean, I don't believe that necessarily you got to be cinema is an empathy machine. You don't have to be the age of the characters to connect with them. Like if you connect with the humanity of the characters, it works as well. So I love the desire to make them younger. It was truly more about finding something that hasn't been done before in the franchise and trying to go to a particular place and a group of people that you hadn't seen a lot of times. I think the intention of the Trucker in Space and the professionals, the co-workers have been done so many times and so well that I felt like, let's try something different. So that was one of the main reasons. It's something I do as well in my movies. I usually like to get characters when they're at that moment in their life. You know, that early 20s is such a important part of our lives when we stop being kids and we become adults and what we're awakened to the realities of the world. And Alien and, you know, what we see in these movies is such it's a loss of innocence in a way. It's kind of by face hugging, right? It's such an invasion, right? That it has that element that I think is, those characters were perfect to have them in that situation. Also, another aspect that is very unique about Alien, but it's really hard to make it work, and it's a miracle how it really makes it work in that first film. It's like horror movies naturally have young people always. They're like, that's the quintessential rule almost. And it's hard to find other horror movies where the protagonists are in their 50s, you know. I mean, obviously Sigourney was 28, but you know, the other ones were like, most of the other ones were older, and Ian Holm was older, and John Hurt was in his 40s. I mean, there were people that were, some of them in their 50s. So, but it's very unique. It's not the thing that is the go-to way to make a horror movie. So I thought, because that was done already, I didn't have to tackle that challenge. I was like, oh, you know, well, let's go with younger people, which I think is always more painful to see them die. And it's like, it's a rule of thumb. I think if you have, the older they are, you know, it's not as hard to see. You know, he's 82 years old, died. Well, he lived a good life. But if you're 12, you will be crying if you see a kid dying. So, the younger they are, the more terrified you are of the prospect of that person dying, right? So when it's done well, right? When you care about them. And, so that's what we try to do. Yeah.
So, one of our favorite aspects of all the Alien films have been the music and the musical scoring for them. I know for this one you're working with Benjamin Wallfisch, whom we're all a huge fan of. And so we wanted to ask you about that a little bit, how you came to find him as the composer for it, and then how you approached the music for this movie, because it's a big one. So,
I mean, I look for a lot of people. You know, I'm a fan of movie scores. So I loved his Blade Runner score. I love his Invisible Man score. Yeah. And Lee Winnell, a friend of mine, had worked with him in Invisible Man and really recommended it. Andy Muschietti, a good friend of mine as well, I worked with him on it, and I also recommended him. So there's a lot of people that I knew that really believed in him, and it's like it was going to be great for this. And he definitely was. He did an incredible score for our movie. And he had such a passion for it as well. If you meet him one day, you should tell, you invited him, well, I'm sure you would love to do it. He is such a fan of this movie and of Alien, and he had such a passion for it that I was like, that's what you want. You don't want to bring anybody into this movie that goes like, yeah, I haven't seen some of them. Ugh, no, you know, you want people that really love them and sees them as the gospel, right? So, and he was definitely like that, and a connoisseur of all the other soundtracks and the other composers. So that I thought was really important. Then, the approach, actually, I'll tell you, as you know those movies don't have a lot of music. If you really pay attention to Alien, it's not a lot of music. I mean, if you listen to the score, sure, but if you watch the movie and you guys should do the math and do it and tell me when you do the podcast how much minutes of music really on camera, on screen, on the runtime of the movie has actually music. Yeah. But I tell you, bro, this is the movie. This much has music in it. And that's because the music of Alien is the sound design. A lot of times, it's the klaxons, it's the alarms, is the beepings. That's what really creates that atmosphere that makes it so Alien. And so you want to make sure you can survive that the action in the screen can hold without music for as long as possible. If you manage to do that, it's because interesting things are happening. And then when things get so tense, then boom, you unleash a massive orchestra on top of the audience. And that's when it really hits. And that's what the original movies do, particularly Alien and Aliens. Nothing happens. There's no music, no music. Aliens has almost no music for most of it. But when it hits, it fucking hits, right? So it's great. Actually, a piece of trivia for you guys. On the day we record, the last day of recording, we went to Abbey Road to record the score for this film. And on the last day, I was we were taking a photo with Ben on the mixer. And it looked for it. I was like, I think I saw a photo of James Horner with Cameron, and I found the photo of James Cameron and his wife and Jimmy Horner on the console, the same place that we were, right? And I look at the date. It was the same day.
No way.
It was the same day. It was like fucking hell. Like it was this thing, like exactly. I'd say probably 38 years ago. Is that right? 3 years ago, that day, Jimmy Horner was finishing the score for Aliens, and there we were, complete coincidence, finishing the score for this one. It's amazing.
My next question is, you're at Comic-Con. This is a big production. You're doing lots of things. You're doing lots of interviews. You are from Uruguay, Montevideo. How do you keep yourself humble in this experience, especially when in an industry that wants to idol worship?
I don't know. It's just, I've been raised well. Yes, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, honestly, I'm very grateful that I got to make movies and with the Uruguayans, that's our demeanor is that like we're a very small country with 3 million people. We kind of know. When you're from a small country or a small town a little bit, I mean, Montevideo is not a small town. It's 1.5 million people. It's a lot of people, but it's a, small community, at least where I came from. And, so when everybody knows each other, you keep yourself in check. You don't want, as soon as someone is showing too much of an ego and going like, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, it's cool with you. So that's where I come from, I guess. And I've been, I've always been very grateful of being able to work in this industry, and I'm getting more used to some of these things, I tell you. But did my first Comic-Con 10 years ago with Evil Dead, and I was totally blown away. But I think people at the end of the day will see it. Like people just with this sort of things, just people show their true colors. So if you're not an asshole, you're never gonna be an asshole. But if you were an asshole, you're trying to behave, then this shit happened, and you show you're a total asshole to everybody. So thank God, I hope I'm not. But thank you so much.
From the research that we've done about the production, it really seems like you have sought out very specific artists for very specific tasks. Mm-hmm. Is that normal? Is this just your process?
I guess. I think you always want to make sure, there's 2 aspects of it, particularly with this movie, is like you want to make sure the person that you hire loves the franchise, really loves it as much as you do, or at least as close as possible as you do, and understands it and doesn't say fucking stupid shit. And if they don't know it, I'm fine. Like with the actors, right? They're young. I cannot pretend they know it, but they don't pretend to know it. You know what I'm talking about? Like if someone says, I don't know anything about aliens, fine. It's like, is that the second one where say something dumb, where the guy from Game of Thrones is? You go, no, but it's fine. You don't know anything, so it's fine. But what I hate is people go like, I'm a big fan. I go, oh, are you? And then they go and say something fucking dumb, right? That drives me nuts, like I told you yesterday on the panel, so this actor came in and said, I'm such a huge fan. I love these movies. But I have to see a few. I still haven't seen some of them, which is already a red flag, right? If you're a big fan, you haven't seen all of them. So, and then he goes, I've just seen the 2 original. He said, the original 2. And it was like, what is that? And he said, I said Prometheus and Covenant. Like, God damn it. You're not getting the role, bro. So that's usually, so anyways, going back to your question, first thing, we want to make sure they really love it and they know it enough that you're going to love to making the movie with them. And the second part is that they are the best you can get, right? The best at what they do. And the beauty of something like this movie is because it's such a beautiful franchise and so beloved by filmmakers specifically. You do get to access to a lot of people that probably another movie, if I'm making Don't Breathe, they're going to go like, I don't care. And they will pass on your ass. But on something like this, that you're lucky enough that everybody, that love movies wants to be part of it. So you really get to choose among the best of the best. And so that's the other part, to really make sure you get the right people, right?
going back to the panel last night, which for the record officially was incredibly exciting and we loved it. You talked a lot about the cast and about working with them and about some ways you kind of got them out of their comfort zone or doing kind of interesting things like shooting, for example, in chronological order. Can you tell us a little bit kind of about how you approach rehearsing with the cast and kind of getting them to give some different performances?
I try not to rehearse too much usually because that particularly younger actors, they come in a bit more nervous. They don't have a lot of experience, so they haven't made a bunch of movies, so they tend to be at first a bit more insecure about how to approach it. I think rehearsal usually can actually hurt them a little bit because you do you do the scene a few times, and then suddenly they see me go like, yeah, that was good. And then they go, okay, that's what I should do on the day over and over and over. You know what I mean? They take it as a guideline of that's what he wants. That's what I'm going to do. And you don't want that. You want someone that's relaxed, that's trying different things, that is really living in the moment above all things. So I try not to do a lot of it. We did some of it at the beginning just for them to go to know their characters, but I don't do it as like, this is the way we do in the scene. Just for them to play themselves, play those characters and understand the dynamics and they can ask all the questions about why did I say that? How do I know this? And you can answer the questions. So that's part of it. Then most of it, when it comes to actually be on the day, what I do is I really try to create a real world. If I show you guys the set and you were there, you were not in a movie stage. You were in a spaceship, and a really tiny spaceship with creatures that were there. And you look out the window and you'll see darkness. It really was an immersive experience for them. And so, like Kaylee was saying, like there's not a lot of acting involved. You're like really lost in the sets, running around trying to find your exit. And the creatures were there. For the most part, there was something running at you, a face hugger or an alien. So that makes it easier in a way. There's less. What am I looking at? What am I supposed to be doing here? Like, there's none of that. Like, you go like, I don't even have to tell you anything. Stand there, right there. Wait, action, boom. There's all this shit running at you. You'll run. You don't need any direction. You have to run in the other direction at the monster.
You mentioned the directors that have gone before you, but specifically one of them, David Fincher. The focus has been Alien and Aliens, but Alien 3 and fandom has really come around, and people really love that film. Mm-hmm. And of course, your film is before those events. Is that a film that you enjoy? Is that a film that, obviously you see Eileen, her haircut, she's bald. I'm thinking, is that a direct nod to Ripley in Alien 3? But I would just love to hear what you think about that film.
I gotta be honest with you. I never had a bad experience watching an Alien movie. None of them, Probably, particularly on the main ones. The AVP is a different experience. But even AVP, I remember I was in Amsterdam and in 2005, living there, I was doing a master in screenwriting. And we went to see AVP, and it was the first time I smoked pot in my life, and I smoked this big joint, and I went in, and it was high as a kite, and I watched the first hour of that movie. I thought it was the best shit I ever saw in my life. It was, it's been so long since I watched that. It was so fucking hell. This is incredible. Then by the time, the Predator team up with the human and they ran together, it was over. But the Queen was great at the end. But, there was even that movie had some great merit. AVP 2, honestly, it was so hard because it was so fucking dark. Yeah. I think someone has to do a remaster of that movie. And at least because the creatures they made for that, they're pretty amazing. And there's some incredible kills in that movie. But it's a bit of a mess in other levels. But with the main ones, I never had a bad experience. I mean, there's a lot of like the thinking back and going like, that could have been better and this or that, But I remember really enjoying Alien 3 when I watch it and find it scary and cool and different and upsetting. It was so upsetting to see Newt dead, but so badass at the same time. Fuck yeah, we're doing this. She's fucking dead. Yes. Yeah, let's give up on all this like fucking silly 80s shit and let's go serious 90s grunge. Like that was the vibe of the time. We were saying, all of us were saying like, fuck Guns N' Roses now. Let's go Nirvana and let's go all this. Like we were all doing that at that time. It was a pivotal moment where we're giving up the long hair, and that's why everybody was bald. You gotta go in that badass, like nihilistic shit that it was starting at the time. So now you're looking back, I was like, why did they do that? Oh, why did they kill Newt? Whatever. Yeah, fuck that. Like that was what you do back then. That's what you do. You need to do it that way. So at the time, I really appreciate it. Resurrection, before that movie was getting made, if you ask me who was my favorite director at the time, I would have probably said Jean-Pierre Jeunet because, well, Jeunet de Caro at the time, because I have Delicatessen I fucking love, and I fucking love Lucille Love Children, Ron Perlman, fucking great. So when I heard that he was the director making 4, fucking great, I couldn't wait, you know, and I went to see it and find all the actors from the other movies, the same tone, the same style. So it made complete sense if you follow his movies. If you watch it in a vacuum, like right now, you go, what the fuck are they thinking? But all these movies made sense at the time. And it's very easy now to look back, and if you binge watch and go like, why did they go in those weird places and whatever, and criticize them. But if you watch them like we did at the time, they made complete sense. They were great directors making very effective movies that I think, you know, they still amazing. So, and even, you know, Prometheus, I remember I was shooting Evil Dead, my first movie, when that came out. I went to the theater with some people from the crew. We watched it, and believe me, the next few days, all we did was talk about that movie and debate what it did, what it meant, what they should have done better, like why did they do this, what happened, criticizing some things, loving others. But there was never a moment of indifference with this movie. It's like, well, sure, whatever. That was okay, right? Yeah. It's like what I hope with this movie. I tell you, with this movie, I hope for you guys and everybody, I hope you love it. And if you don't, I hope you fucking hate it. But I hope you really hate it with all your heart. Because the worst thing for me is indifference. It's like, yeah, whatever, down the middle, that's okay. Now you like it? Nah, maybe. That's horrendous. That's death, I think. But I hope it really gets strong emotion from you. That's what we all look for. Even if a movie makes you fucking hate it, it did something for you. It make you feel alive and mad and remind you how much you love the other ones, you know? So I really hope it does one of those. Hopefully it makes you love it. But in any case, hope it is never indifference what you get out of it.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much
for this
Thank you,
opportunity
guys.
and the time.
Pleasure to have you. Real interview finally. That's great.
Listening back to that interview, it was just really incredible. It was an incredible moment to be there with Fede as fans, but also with a fellow fan, with someone who understands the IP, just doesn't understand it on an aesthetic level or an intellectual level, but he's excited about it. It makes him happy. He likes talking about it. And it was this really easy time with him. And before we actually went into the room to interview him, we were waiting in a hallway essentially, and he came out, he greeted us, he stood around and talked with us for a while. He had a smile on his face. It was just a really lovely time. And we are so excited to have the opportunity to share this interview with everyone else.
Yeah, we keep saying it, but it's true. It feels like one of us got a chance to direct this movie, which is just so exciting. One other thing that really sticks out for me about this whole experience was getting to talk to him about the musical score, because that is such a big part of these movies, and hearing that moment where he said that they finished the score at Abbey Road Studios 38 years to the day that James Horner finished the score with James Cameron for Aliens really just highlighted how synchronized all of this is and kind of how right it feels, and how even though this movie is signaling a really bright future, we hope and we think, for the franchise, it also has a lot of these beautiful ties to the past, and I really felt that kind of running through us like a current throughout this entire San Diego Comic-Con experience.
I hope that it comes through in the recording how jovial this conversation felt. There was this sense of hanging out with good friends, discussing our love of the movies, disagreeing perhaps on some of our takes on it, but in the end, just coming together as a fandom. And also, it's important to note, this is the first time since 1986 that the same person wrote and directed the movie. And I feel like there has been a disconnect in both the sequels and the prequels, because there was a vision from the writer and a vision from the director. And so Fede co-writing this movie and also directing it, I think is really going to unify the overall meaning of the film. And I'm very excited to see that in just a couple weeks.
To that end, I really want to just talk about Fede's fandom, and not just his fandom, but 20th century / Disney taking the chance to say, we need someone to helm this film who loves these movies. In the past, they would look for different directors who had great visual styles, but a story was already in place. And it didn't always work out. Even films that we love, some things didn't work out and they were divisive. But to be where we are in 2024 and to have 20th Century trust Fede enough to say, you know what? We trust your vision. We trust what you're doing. Similar to the way that they approached Dan Trachtenberg for Prey. It's just an amazing thing to know that this film is in good hands. It's not to say that maybe we'll agree with all of his choices. We don't know. But to know that it's in the hands and it's being cradled by someone who loves these films, you can't get better than that.
And speaking of Dan Trachtenberg, he was one of the people who recorded a message for the panel. We did a little video on this on social media if you want to go get more in-depth stuff about what went into that panel on Friday night in Hall H. But just, again, to reiterate, it was just an amazing experience for fans, and it was surprising and kind of scary and really cool. And we got to see more of the footage from the film, which was awesome because it was great. It was really exciting. It was scary. It was accelerative. And so it really felt like an Alien/Aliens movie, even just in what we've seen of it. We're going to see each other again in 2.5 weeks because this movie, as Christian said, is about to come out. And we are on the cusp of many more great conversations. As Fede said, many more late night arguments, many more either we love it or we fucking hate it moments where we can come together as a fandom and really engage on something. And this is probably the most excited I've ever been in my whole life for Alien in general, which is kind of saying something. So it's getting to share it with these guys was such a signal pleasure in my life, and getting to share it with all of you in 2.5 weeks when we go see the movie is going to be a whole other level.
I know we mentioned Patreon quite a bit, and we've mentioned we are here because of our patrons. And again, it's just really, really true. And I'm just so grateful for those who have decided that our show and what we produce as a podcast is worth their patronage every month. So thank you so much. And if you're interested in that, you can go to perfectorganism.com/support and sign up for as little as $4 a month. That being said, again, thank you all for listening. Thank you for rallying around us through the years. This was really an arrival for us in a fundamental way. We can't wait to talk about what's next. We can't wait to discuss our first impressions of Alien Romulus. Also, it's just great to know that Fede has listened to the show and that he has trusted us enough as a podcast to come on and talk to us. So we couldn't be more honored. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
See you soon.
To find out more information about Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast, please go to www.perfectorganism.com. If you would like to support the show, please go to www.perfectorganism.com/support. Thank you.